I sing the song, I like to say something. You know, when my wife and I sit back there and the congregation is singing, I hear a lot of beautiful voices in the audience. And when somebody is asked to do special music, whether you can sing or not, you know, we're here to glorify God, not ourselves in any way. I don't care if you play a tonette or a violin. You take Sue. I would love to hear her play that song, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. Remember that? That's so beautiful on the piano. We don't hear things like that. And we have that kind of talent in this church. I'm going to do something a little different this morning. I'm not going to sing one of my songs. I'm going to do something different. But if you have a talent, go see Lisa, because Lisa would love for somebody to come up here. She has a hard job. She asks people to sing and they turn her down. Unless you're sick, I can understand. But to turn down an opportunity to sing for God, especially on the Sabbath day. Still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks at the sound of His voice. It's so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody that He gives to me within my heart still ringing. Oh, He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with Him, though the night around joy we share as we tarry there. None other has ever known.
That was very nice. Our scripture reading is found in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. I'll be reading out of the New King James. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there, in this horn, were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words.
Good morning, everybody. So, thank you to John and Don and everybody who flexed at the last minute to bail me out. I now know I need to get the whole keynote to you ahead of time on a thumb drive. So, for those of you that were tempted to tune out when you heard Daniel 7 being read, bear with me a minute, because I would have done the same thing. I really honestly had zero interest in prophecy all these years. And if you had asked me, I thought Rome, Italy was just a beautiful tourist place to go to that happened to have the Vatican there. I literally did not connect the dots that Rome had anything to do with the fourth beast of Daniel or anything else in history. And so the magnitude and the significance of that city alone, wow, did that take me by surprise. Over the last couple of years, you know that I've been studying Daniel and starting to get into Revelation, doing it without commentaries, without online help, without asking anybody, without Googling. The only thing I've done is maybe Googled like a place or a date or something like that. I've not gotten help, because my curiosity was, what does the Bible say? Does it say what I've always been told? Well, the problem is, I didn't even really know what I'd been told. All I knew is that there was popes that showed up somewhere in medieval times, and I thought the papacy was the fourth beast. I had no idea the fourth beast had multiple phases. So, you're getting a little glimpse into my journey, partly what I've studied and partly what I learned being there and being able to connect the dots. So, the making of the fourth beast, again, why? What possible relevance does it have to us in 2025? Well, every apocalyptic movie has, those few people that figure out there's something bad that's going to happen, and they warn everybody and they save the world and stuff. Well, we're the ones that supposedly have that final message, or that understand Revelation better than everyone else. And there is several messages, very special messages that are supposed to go out. Do you know what they are? I must confess, I really didn't know what they were. I could have turned you to roughly where they were in Revelation. Again, big snooze fest, for me. So if we are supposed to be, explaining this to the world, what exactly are we supposed to be saying? That the papacy is evil? Why? Why exactly? Can you answer that question for yourself? What's the big deal? The Pope is the Antichrist? Why exactly? How do I defend that? What does it matter to anybody? So that's some of the questions that, I found myself, and there's many more, but, we're going to start to figure these ones out just a little bit. What exactly is the fourth beast? How did Satan do it, which we'll kind of get into more next time, and why does it even matter? So the first thing I noticed when I was studying Daniel is I need to be telling you what to, which slides to be on. So when I started studying Daniel and Revelation, I realized that there is just a completely imbalanced, significant amount of time spent on the fourth beast. There's 3 beasts that come before it, and there's not only a small amount of chapters or verses on them. If you look at a historical time chart, from your perspective, if you're coming from Babylon and Medo-Persia and Greece, they really take up a little bit of time. We've had, at that point, we'd had thousands of years of history, 1,600 years in the pre-flood world, quite a bit of time before we got to Babylon, where the 3 worthies are getting tossed into the fiery furnace. But you've got these 3 major world empires, and they take up a short period of time, and then the fourth one goes all the way to the very end of time. And it's so traumatic that Daniel, he faints, he's sick a number of days. Like, this stresses this man out. Well, what did he see? So, number 1, this is, next slide. I didn't know that the fourth beast was Rome, and that it was Rome in multiple phases. This is one of the most fascinating things. I don't understand, stuff very easily unless I can draw pictures. So some of you know that I've been making a chart, and I've been literally drawing pictures as I studied Daniel and Revelation, because I just, right over the head. I don't get it, it's confusing. So I'll draw a little picture for each of the, not each verse, but like kind of each passage. And as I went along, I actually wrote, and you can see it in one of my early charts, I wrote on there, this is a really weird beast. It changes. Well, I had no idea just how much it changes. It changes not just from pagan Rome to papal Rome. There's several other aspects to this thing, but we won't get into all of that this morning. But I didn't know that the fourth beast was Rome and that there were phases, and I just basically thought it was the papacy, and that somehow popes showed up at some point, and I didn't know how that happened. All right, so next. The first thing that I really started to realize is just how cruel Rome was. Daniel says in those verses that it is cruel. Now, all 4 beasts have armies. All 4 beasts conquered nations, a lot of them. So what makes the fourth one any more cruel or traumatic than the other ones? So it was described as dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong, had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, trampling the residue with its feet. Took me a long time to figure out what the residue was. Anyway, finally, in studying, I realized that this beast in particular is, of all of them, it's particularly used by Satan, and it specifically goes after God's people. Way more than any other beast. Satan uses full bore, uses that beast. So, next slide. The first instance that we have of Rome in its cruelty, at least as seen in God's people, because it did do things to the other nations too, but particularly God's focused in on what it does to his people. And Rome kills all the children in Bethlehem. There's, they estimate around 2,000 of them, but there was when Herod thought that there's a king, well, the 3 wise men show up and says, well, where's the king that was born so we can, worship him? And Herod's like, what king? Do tell, fill me in so I can go worship him, when in reality he just wants to go destroy him. So when the wise men did not come back, he, angrily says, kill them all. Everybody under 2 years old, kill them all. So that's the first thing that Rome does. Oh, I didn't dump the other picture in here. go on to the next one. So go to the one where the palace with the big, yeah, perfect. So I'll explain basically in a minute about the first really big bite and how that was Nero. But first, before I talk about Nero, I kind of wanted to set the stage. I almost skipped going to, there was a bunch of a lot of tours in Rome that you could do, and I was interested in getting some footage of Nero because I knew that he, had killed Christians, and I thought, okay, well, that's probably something important to video, but I didn't, judging from the pictures they had online, I didn't think it was going to be very interesting. So at first I didn't go, didn't want to go, but I decided I'll go to it, and they showed us all through the palace, but they also sat us down with those goggles, like when you play a video game, so that you could see what it would have looked like when it was fully intact. So it was, they know it was at least 100 acres. They think it was possibly 300 acres. It had an artificial lake. This image is based on, I had ChatGPT create what it basically might have looked like. They gave me a couple of different versions, but it had a great big lake, and the palace right there does look very similar to what they showed me in the goggles. But it had huge, lavish gardens and pavilions, and this giant statue of Nero. Now, most of this is all underground right now, and I will show you a little bit of that in a minute. But it was built after, you can go to the next slide, it was built on the site after the Great Fire destroyed Rome, and the historians think that he literally let Rome burn so that he could clear enough area for his giant palace thing. So he left it unchecked and then cleared it and built. It was built in 4 years. You can go to the next slide. That's a video. I'm not sure if it's going to play because I turned it into a PowerPoint, so I'm not sure if it's going to play. No? Okay. All right. You cannot conceive of how massive this, you would have gotten lost if you didn't have a guide in there. They found the 151st room in 2018. They're still uncovering this. It wasn't even found until the 1500s. It was the 16th century before they started finding it. And it has 12-meter tall, just bigger roughly yards, it's not exactly, but 12-meter tall ceilings. It just, you felt dwarfed. It just was so huge. Go to the next one. And it's amazing, like some of the rooms you could see, like there was a maybe 3-inch thick cover over all the brick, and he lavished those walls with jewels and frescoes and mosaic tile, all these different decorations and stuff. So it was stunning. I'll give you a couple more pictures in a minute, but a lot of it's gone. After Nero's suicide in 68 AD, the palace was stripped of its marble, its jewels, its ivory, and within a decade it was filled in and built over because they wanted to give back to Rome and to the inhabitants some of what Nero had basically stolen from them. So go to the next. So the next one is, so some of it, where the lake was, is where the Colosseum is today. So they filled it in and they built the Colosseum. So when you come out of the ruins and you look basically towards the sun, the setting sun, it's literally right there. And yet it's far enough away that it did give you a grasp of how huge these grounds were. Okay, go to the next one. Now, even the dining area was spectacular. Again, this would have all been covered over and it was stripped, but they say online that it was actually a rotating dining room, and I think they may have used ball bearings. Now, if the guide said that, I missed that part, but then again, I was running all over videoing and photoing, so I wasn't necessarily listening to everything that the guide said. So if it's true, and I do need to do some more investigation, but the descriptions from historians say that this thing rotated. Don't know. Anyway, at one end, well, first of all, it's unlikely that he had, many happy family, meals in that dining room. He killed his stepfather, his mother, his wife, and his unborn child to stay in power. So this guy was a brute. So go to the next one. Now, at one end of it, and by the way, each of those alcoves were so that private dinner parties could all have their own spot, while they were, feasting. And what you're seeing directly ahead in the picture on the left is a waterfall, and it's still flowing in there. I don't know if they had to re-excavate to get it to flow again, or if it was just still doing that, but he had a waterfall in his dining room. And I had ChatGPT, I said, can you reconstruct, based on research and best historical records, what it would have looked like when the marble and everything was in there? And that's what it gave me, for what it's worth. Okay, so next one. But what I found fascinating was one of the final things that she said as we were walking out. She said, when it got finished, and it took him 4 years, he must have had massive numbers of people that were working on this building, and because it was finished in a very short period of time. And when it finished, his comment was, "Now I can finally start living like a human being," because apparently everything else was beneath him. So he needed the 151 or plus rooms, and lavish, like I said, they were explaining the blues, because we could see some of the color in some of the rooms still, and the blue was from a paint that was made from some place in Africa. I didn't take the time to look up the number. They told us how much it cost. It was an obscene amount of money for a small amount of it. So he spent ridiculous amounts of wealth on this place where he lived. Okay, so next one. So after burning Rome, although he blamed it on the Christians, so after he burns Rome and he builds this lavish palace, it's not going very well for him, so he wants to shift the blame. He shifts the blame to Christians, and he burns them as he lit his garden pathways with human torches. He burned people, he lined them up. That's how he lit his pathways. I couldn't even get ChatGPT to give me it in any format whatsoever, not even full, almost completely covering up a person with fire. So this was the best that I could do. Not that I was trying to be graphic, but this is history. And if we don't learn from history, we're prone to repeat these things. The brutality of a human being, it's almost blasphemous, the level of iniquity that he was involved in. And almost heaven daring, like, just, take me down. It was amazing, completely sold out to Satan. But again, he was only the first big bite of the fourth beast. When that fourth beast started grinding and devouring and stamping the residue with its feet, Herod, like I said, killed the children. Nero, he's the first one that takes the first big bite, and he starts destroying Christians. But again, he doesn't last very long because he kills himself. So let's go to the next one, because the next big blow to God's people is an amazing story. And again, it shows you how little I knew about all this stuff. So the second thing is, I thought Christians dying in the Colosseum was just kind of a, random thing, a side note of, the culture and the times. I didn't realize, again, that it was the fourth beast in its first phase, so in pagan Rome. So, and I didn't realize the unbelievable story behind God's people dying in the Colosseum. You can't make this stuff up. Go to the next one. 500 years before the Colosseum, Daniel is shown all four beasts. So, but again, only the fourth beast was the one that traumatized him. He saw that the fourth beast lasts until the very end, until the stone that's cut without hands destroys it. And we know that he saw the persecution of God's people. One of the scenes that he probably was shown was not only the destruction of Jerusalem, which this is an image of, but he was probably shown the Christians dying in the Colosseum and some of the other things, because God swept all the way through history to the end. So, again, we're 500 years before the Colosseum. Daniel's being shown the fourth beast, and that he was specifically told, Israel's being given 490 years. Get your act together, figure out who you want to serve, because your time's going to be up, and I'm going to give the vineyard to somebody else to steward if you don't want the role. So, he saw the temple, like I said, in Jerusalem being destroyed again, because this scene is going to happen in 70 AD. So this is one of the things, like if you picture him in his night dream, this is one of the images that would have come up that was going to be 500 years in the future. So he sees Jerusalem being destroyed. Go to the next one. So when does this happen? The destruction of Jerusalem was 70 AD. And so I'm standing in front of the Arch of Titus. Again, talk about history coming to life. This stuff would be just boring historical monuments without the story. It's the story that brings stuff to life. So I would have waltzed right on by this, but this picture was, this arch was made when Titus came back after destroying Jerusalem. He comes back victorious, and this is just a few hundred yards, by the way, from the Colosseum. Go to the next picture. What you can't see, because behind me was there was scaffolding, and so it made it difficult to film this stuff. But what you can't see is one of the pictures, one of the reliefs, like one of the things they carved in the stone, because this is a monument to, wow, I'm all that. I just came back from destroying Israel and Jerusalem. And so one of the pictures they engraved into that monument was the soldiers coming back with all the spoils of Jerusalem. They came back with the golden menorah, the silver trumpets, and a lot of money, a lot of wealth they came back from that with. And when they came back with that, go to the next one. When they came back with all that stuff, at first, because it was Vespasian, his father, and Titus, it kind of spanned the two of them. They were both dealing with this. Anyway, Vespasian makes the Temple of Peace right here in front of me. And you can still walk amongst these ruins where they came back and put that stuff. They put the spoils of war in the Temple of Peace. Get a complete oxymoron. So, but it didn't stay there very long, because what they did was they used all of that money and wealth and artifacts that they came back with. They made the Colosseum with this. So go to the next one. So I'm standing there in the Colosseum, and the reality of the fact that the failure of Israel, God's first people, funded the building of the Colosseum where God's new people are thrown to the animals. You literally can't make that up. It's amazing. And one guy actually told me they think that those stones that are at the top of the wall, they don't go all the way around. It's only a certain section. They think that those white stones are from the temple in Jerusalem, that they lugged some of those things back there and used it. Again, you just, the significance of God's people failing, Israel failing, and then the money from the destruction of Jerusalem going to build the building where God's new people are thrown to the wild animals. It's unbelievable. So, go to the next one. Again, this is a video. I wish it could pan all over the whole thing, but I found myself looking down into the ruins, and the reality of it is just amazing. I found myself wondering what doors they came out of when they were brought out to their deaths. And some of the things we'll get into next week, because I'm going to do part 2 next time, it was amazing their courage. The experiences, because we do have documentation of some of these people. It's amazing their fortitude. What we can learn, for what we will face, because Revelation makes it clearly says there will be those that are martyred in the end times. So we need to learn from the past and be encouraged from them, and not take it for granted that we've got some kind of head knowledge that, oh, well, yeah, we know it, like the little horns, the papacy or something like that, and I'm an Adventist and I go to church on Saturday. I think we need to be fortified a little bit more than that. Next. So this is just a bridge. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to point out something to kind of let you know what I'm going to do next week. So I found myself wondering again, how did we go from pagan Rome to papal Rome? And how did we go from Jesus washing the disciples' feet to a scene, the scene on the right is 1077 AD, roughly 1,000 years later, when Emperor Henry IV was groveling in the snow before Pope Gregory VI, hoping to not lose his throne. How did we get from the Son of God and a handful of fishermen and a despised tax collector to an emperor, an emperor groveling at another man's feet? We're not talking about a slave groveling. We're not talking about a town clerk. We're talking about an emperor. Like, you don't get any higher than this. And he's groveling at the feet of another man. Because even his officials and his knights and various people he was about to lose his kingdom. How did we grow that? I mean, not we, but like, how did Satan grow? What happened? How did that happen? I mean, it's crazy. So I realized I had a complete missing gap of centuries, and I had no idea what came in between that. And again, I'm still piecing all together, why God spent so much time focusing on that. So, part 2 is next week. It's 12:08. I thought I'd be like way long. Did we start early? I was trying to make sure I didn't go through too many slides because I got a bazillion things from the trip. But next time we will go through the Vatican, and wow, the propaganda is just unbelievable in Rome. And that's the thing that probably surprised me the most. So, I guess you can get out of church early, spend some more time at either potluck or with your family today. It's a closing song.
Let's all stand for our closing hymn, number 100, Great is Thy Faithfulness.
Passion
Father, we thank you that you prepared your people all through the centuries, all through this last 6,000 years of history, but you cared enough to not leave us blindsided by the fourth beast and all that would happen before the end. And I know you still want to encourage us and prepare us for the final events. So I pray you'll help us to have an interest in them, and that you'll lead us each in the pathway that will make the most sense and bring, biblical history to life. Bring the Bible back to life if we've gotten, bored with it. I just pray for your blessing upon our spiritual walks. Help us to be a witness and a bright light to those around us, and to bring people into the church. In Jesus' name, amen.